I liked Bioshock Infinite. I thought it was an enjoyable experience despite all its flaws. Its many, many flaws. That's mostly because the one really big one reared its big dumb head right at the end of the game. And I found it hilarious, even though it wasn't supposed to be funny. I mean, it's a story that's just teeming with references to quantum mechanics no one understands, while at the same time completely disregarding basic math that everyone should have learned in 8th grade. Infinite means infinite. I mean, I know that's hard to wrap your head around, but it's true. And when you're talking about an infinite possibility space, as in an infinite number of universes, that means that everything you can imagine, everything you can't imagine, and everything that's unimaginable is all true. I thought it was cool how they used the concept of infinite parallel universes to tell a tightly focused story about 3 or 4 characters, depending on whether you consider Daisy Fitzroy's rebellion to be filler or not. See, Elizabeth wanted her freedom.
This is the way out, isn't it?
What are you... Give it to me!
And somewhere along the line that changed to her wanting Comstock dead.
And so what, you're going to kill him?
And those are both clear, relatable motivations. And I was willing to extend my suspension of disbelief to facilitate them telling this story. And then at the end, Elizabeth kills Booker. Which is stupid. And it ties into the second stupidest thing in this whole story. Whole collapsing in on yourself after you die thing.
What was wrong with him?
I remembered.
Remembered what?
Being dead.
See, right at the end of the game, they start trying to subvert the concept of infinite universes, and then things get really bad. In effect, this is what Elizabeth was trying to do. Which makes perfect sense to anyone who doesn't know what a number is. Infinity is a concept. It's not a number. You can't do math with it. Infinity is that thing you end up with when you've done something possible. After Comstock died, he collapsed into Booker, but that doesn't make sense. In infinite universes, Comstock is already dead. I mean, he choked on his breakfast in one universe. He was stillborn in one universe. He was eaten by wolves in another. So why hasn't he already collapsed? Why isn't he already having nosebleeds? Why isn't everyone having nosebleeds? We're supposed to believe that in an infinite possibility space, Comstock never died up to this point, and that's impossible. And drowning Booker doesn't serve any purpose either. This Booker is already past the point of the baptism. So what purpose is there in killing him? Plus, in infinite universes, at least one Booker can breathe underwater, so drowning him wouldn't do anything. You see how infinite universes kinda screws up this whole ending sequence? I mean, I'm sure there's at least one universe where this ending isn't fucking stupid, but this ain't it. And then in the Burial at Sea DLC, they decided to poke and prod at this plot hole, and for the most part, I think it worked in Episode 1. Elizabeth found a Comstock, which makes sense because there would still be Comstocks alive after the end of the core game, and she wants to kill it, which is at least consistent with her motivation.
That final Comstock, he thought he could avoid his guilt by coming here.
And that's not really freedom, but if she wants to spend the rest of her existence on this Sisyphean pattern of revenge, I would be okay with it. That's really the only form of closure you can get in an infinite possibility space. So at the end of Part 1, I considered this plot hole officially skirted. But then Part 2 came out, which I can only refer to as an epic fumble. This episode opens with Elizabeth in, I don't know, heaven, I guess?
I wasn't Paris any more than I am Booker.
And then her death at the hands of the Big Daddy causes her to collapse in on herself, which doesn't make any sense. This whole story is about how she died right here, and is trying to get revenge for it. So why didn't she collapse on herself in this dead baby universe? So you see, the story already falls apart under the weight of its own internal stupidity, and she also lost all of her powers. Why?
Back to where she doesn't belong.
Doesn't belong? Wait, what do you mean?
Do you want to tell her brother, or shall I?
Because I died.
There are rules.
Even for one such as you.
I don't know. Well, we could pick apart theoretical physics until the cows pulled their dicks out of the writer's nose, but the short answer is that they needed to facilitate making one of the most stupid and broken gameplay decisions I've ever seen. Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea Part 2 is a stealth game. And no, not just on 1998 mode. If you try to go through the game on a lethal run, enemies scale up in difficulty as you progress through the game. And I mean, that's standard fare for anything, really. But if you're playing stealth, your one-hit KO is always a one-hit KO. Except for the higher tier enemies, who you need to hit twice, but it's still infinitely more effective than trying to use bullets against them. Your ammo capacity maxes out at 2 clips. And guns make noise.
Did you hear that?
So shooting an enemy will alert all the other enemies within earshot, and so you'll inevitably use up your meager supply of ammo and then try to resort to melee, because Bioshock Infinite has some of the most visceral, satisfying melee combat I can think of in a shooter. And what the fuck was that? Now, I don't want to go ringing the Anita Sarkeesian bell, but there's something fucking fishy about the gender politics in this game. In the core game, Elizabeth was strong-willed, independent, and powerful. She was just a strong female character, buzzword, buzzword, buzzword. But now look at her. She's weak, because her powers were stripped away for no reason.
Just a normal girl. With a normal pinky.
Where have I heard that before?
A normal girl with normal knees.
She's not strong-willed anymore, because she mostly just whines about not being more like Booker.
That's not what you would have done.
I'm not Booker.
Even though Booker wasn't that great without her. With Elizabeth, he was awesome, but without her, it took him like 50 years to rescue her. And she did half the work for him.
Snow.
It took all I had left in me, just to bring you here.
And then she kills Booker, just on the off chance that it might prevent Comstock from coming back. And now she's crying about not being more like him?
That's not what you would have done.
I'm not Booker.
She's not independent anymore. She's completely at the mercy of bad guys and hallucinations, who are both male, by the way. And she doesn't even have autonomy anymore because the Booker hallucination tells her exactly what to do or say at every step.
Booker, what?
Say,
I don't understand. How?
Say, I can get you back to Rapture.
What?
Just say it.
And they do a similar thing with Daisy Fitzroy. In the core game, she's running an army.
The founders ain't nothing but weeds. Cut them down and they just grow back.
And here it's revealed that she's just a puppet of the Lutesses.
You mean I won't live to see the... No. It's up to you what matters more.
Your part in the play?
Or the play itself.
Well, it's not like they did anything weird with Rosalind Lutess's character. It's not like they threw in a scene where her maternal instincts completely overshadow her curiosity and passion and heavily imply that she's into incest.
Our current state of being, or lack thereof, has left my brother unfulfilled. The biological urge to leave one's mark is strong, and it is not an impossibility. We could instantiate ourselves back in Columbia, return to an old life for the possibility of creating new. But we died in that world. Returning would mean giving up part of us, ourselves. We'd become flesh and all that it is heir to. The mysteries of the universe would become once again mysteries.
Oh wait, they did do that. Back to the mechanics. Burial at Sea Part 2 turned a game about visceral combat into a stealth game. Why? Sexism most likely, but is it at least well made? Hell no. See, none of the standard Bioshock mechanics were changed. In Bioshock, you could always hear the splicers speaking clearly regardless of where they were in the room or how far away they were.
I'll do what I want. It's my Adam. I earned it.
You want this ugly? Or do you want this?
And that helped build up the atmosphere. It also helped by letting you know that there were enemies in the room without telling you exactly where they were. And that gave the first Bioshock elements of a horror game. In a stealth game, not knowing where any of the enemies are is really fucking annoying. And as I mentioned before, there's also a big old middle finger to all the people who don't want to play Burial at Sea Part 2 as a stealth game, because there's not enough ammo in Rapture to kill anything. You're restricted to holding 6 shotgun shells and 12 revolver rounds, which is never enough ammo to kill every enemy in an encounter, even with perfect headshots. And there's not even any benefit to killing all the enemies in an area, because enemies respawn. But the kicker is that on top of there not being any benefit to killing things, there's also no downside to not killing things. As Throwing caution to the wind and just sprinting from point A to point B without paying any regard to the enemies will never ever backfire on you, even on the highest difficulty. Because the enemies never follow you through doors and they just seem to forget about you as soon as you break line of sight. Not to mention that there's a plasmid that'll let you turn invisible at any point in time if you ever need to erase yourself from the cosmic consciousness. The one time you are forced to stand and fight, you can just sit in a corner and use your one-hit KO darts on everybody. Mechanically, it's a train wreck, and the story is built on a foundation of internal contradictions. What are those contradictions? Well, Elizabeth has to get Atlas back up to Rapture to save some little sister that we don't care about. I mean, there are infinite Elizabeths, right? Some of them are named Anna, some of them are named Sally, but they're all Elizabeth. And why does Elizabeth care so much about this particular Sally?
I'm not going to burn her.
If you won't do it, I will.
And why didn't Elizabeth collapse when Sally died the first time? How is this Sally alive if she's dead? None of the elements of this story gel. Back in part 1, Elizabeth wanted to kill Comstock. Fine. I mean, it's ultimately futile, because, you know, infinity. But fine. Catharsis is a passable motivation. Hold on, wait, why is this Big Daddy imprinted on Sally before Suchong figured out how to make the Big Daddies imprint?
I can't seem to get the damn Big Daddies to imprint on the little brats.
Why didn't Elizabeth just shoot Comstock in the face? She didn't have to involve Sally or the Big Daddy at all. How did Booker get there?
That wasn't Paris any more than I am Booker.
Well, what is it then?
I'm a projection of your own.
Could you humor me then?
If he's just a projection, why does he need things explained to him?
What is all this?
Imprinting.
Why does Elizabeth keep working for Atlas even after she's fully aware that he won't hold up his end of the deal?
Elizabeth, you know Atlas is going to...
I know. And I'm ready.
If you insist.
Are you completely shit-faced yet? Alright, then I'll stop. And then Irrational Games closes down and lays off all their staff. You think maybe there's some justice in the world. But wait, Mac Walter's head isn't on a pike in my living room, so that can't be true. Maybe Irrational Games was just trying to white fang us. And yes, I do only know that term because I heard it on an episode of New Girl.
Go on, Scram! Go! I hate you, go! Ah! Ah!
Yeah, that's it. They didn't want us to be sad when the studio responsible for amazing games like System Shock 2 and Bioshock shut down. So they made this steaming pile just to ease the path to death. It's almost brilliant in its simplicity. Oh wait, they charged us money for it. Yeah, fuck 'em.